Welcome to the next episode of Sikka to Swipe. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Gireendra Kasmalkar, Managing Director and Founder of Pentathlon Ventures. Before starting his venture, Mr. Gireendra, very successful entrepreneur journey. He started his software testing service, which was later acquired by a German company. Welcome, Gireendra, to Sikka to Swipe.
Thank you so much, Naina, and thank you, the FI Commerce team. I'm very glad to be here in the Sikka to Swipe podcast. It's a very, very interesting name, I must say.
Thank you so much. Everybody says that, and it's like a team effort. Everybody came up with the name, and we just loved it. Have you finished your fund completely, or you're still the
Fund 1 is completely deployed. Fund 2, we are in the, we have done our first close. So we have started investment. So there are about 6 companies that we are investing in. But the final close will happen in a few months' time. So both the actions are going on. We are fundraising towards a final close, and we are also have started investment.
And what are the things that you're looking for when you're deploying the fund? Any particular trend that you it's sacrosanct that has to be there before you kind of look at something?
So we call ourselves B2B tech. So one thing it means is that we are not focused on any particular industry domain. It could be across verticals. So it could be fintech, it could be healthcare, it could be edutech, and now it could be other things that we have done also. Enterprise, we used to call it digital transformation in Fund 1. We call it AI transformation in Fund 2.
Okay.
That is the biggest bucket without question. So those are the things where age-old conventional B2B use case is getting transformed or disrupted due to new technology is where we focus on. So we have to see that use case is going to remain no matter what. For example, we have invested in a company which does sales lead qualification. Never going to go away. But with Gen AI now, you can have autonomous bots calling instead of human beings. So this is the kind of disruption that we are looking at, that the sales qualification, lead qualification use case will remain forever. But the founders have to be good enough to know that domain very well, that use case very well, but also know how to adapt technology to come up with the best possible solution for that particular problem, no matter how much the technology changes. So that is what we are constantly looking for.
Gireendra, I'll come straight to the point. You have been being an entrepreneur and now a venture capitalist. And what would be your one suggestions to the founders from an entrepreneur's eye?
I think it's a great question. When I was starting my testing company, this was exactly the thought that I had in mind, because India was coming up in IT. There were lots of IT companies, and if I had to start my new company, should it do the same that everybody else was doing, or should I be doing something different? If I was a small company coming up, it better be something different than most of the large companies were doing. And that's where I came up with the idea of starting a testing company. Now, most of the companies were doing testing, but not as an independent business. And that's what we started doing. And this is where we got all the software companies as our customers. And that's how the business grew. So the one big lesson that I learned then, and which is now very useful as a VC also, is all startups must have uniqueness. They must be doing something differently than what most other companies are doing. And that uniqueness could come from various things.
Understood. So see, B2C, everybody talks and they grabs the headline, but B2B is where the real innovation is. And as you said, the uniqueness comes from there. So what do you think that the B2B companies should be doing to make sure that, their innovations are reaching to the right people?
Right. Again, when we started our VC fund 4 or 5 years back, everybody was saying that we should be doing B2C instead of B2B, because that B2B was our focus. And the reason was simple. India was, a very populous country. The consumption story was big, and that's where people thought that B2C had to work in India. But we had our B2B background. And what we realized was that B2C was a winner-take-all kind of a game. You have to put in a lot of marketing spend to become the number 1 or number 2. Otherwise, number 3 onwards, you don't have any chance. Whereas in B2B, it's much more robust success in the sense that you solve a particular problem for your customer, they pay you, you make profits, and there could be 10 companies in the same, let's say, manufacturing space. You can find your own niche or uniqueness in 10 different ways in the same space. So that's what we thought was more interesting in B2B, that without so much of marketing spend, you can still create your unique position in the market. So that's why we focused on B2B, and that has proven to be true in our Fund 1, and hence we are in our Fund 2 journey now.
So in your Fund 1 journey, you have already finished Fund 1 and you're in Fund 2. What is that thing that you're doing differently in Fund 2 that you have not done in Fund 1?
Fund 1 was quite small because it was a first fund and we were also learning the ropes and so on. Luckily for us, the thesis worked out exactly right. The B2B early stage, early revenue stage thesis, catching them young in India, taking them global, that thesis worked out excellently. So we are doubling down on the things that worked well, and which means that the same thesis applies to Fund 2 also. What has been different has been that now we are becoming more ambitious. Now we want to lead the rounds. Now we want to have double-digit equity. So which means that we must have larger ticket sizes. And that's why the larger size of the fund. We also increase the life of the fund so that we can do multiple follow-ons. We have started a US entity that is basically a feeder fund into our India entity, so that people outside of India can invest in the company. So those are the things which we have tweaked or strengthened while keeping the fundamental thesis exactly the same.
Yes. See, you mentioned B2B tech. You mentioned that how, from India, things are coming and going global. So I want to understand that, if a B2B player is starting off in India, what are the 3 or 4 things that they should do to make sure that they are successful when they're going global?
Okay. So first of all, in B2B, what needs to happen is, of course, all the business principles apply and so on. But especially for B2B, knowing the customer problem very well is extremely important. Especially if you look at what we are doing, we are looking at the disruption of business use cases across verticals because of tech. Correct? So if that is to happen, then we need a kind of a mix of capabilities in the founder team. One is obviously there has to be this hustle and business savvy and all of that. Secondly, there has to be tech knowledge, because that is what is disrupting. But the third and very important thing is they must have the domain knowledge to know the criticality of the problem that they are solving, how big the problem is, and if you solve that, how big success you can be, and so on. So that is fundamental to no matter where you start the business. And you asked about now going from India to global, what has to change? That is it could be a very tricky journey, because you may find your product market fit in India, but outside of India, the product market fit could be different, for example. So the strategies that work here, then the customer base could be different in them. So we actually try to look for use cases that have applicability both in India and outside, but still it could change. And there are various strategies that people have used to succeed outside of India. Sometimes you find channel partners. Sometimes the founder goes and parks himself in the US. Sometimes you do a product-led growth kind of a strategy where you are remotely selling from India to the US. And we have seen that for different companies, different strategies work. But the one thing that is common is that you must have the resources with you. You cannot assume that you go and you'll be able to succeed. It is very likely that your first iteration will not succeed and you'll have to do something differently. So you must have the resources to be able to do that. So we actually guide our startups that they must have certain amount of traction in India, and before they venture out to go to the international market. Yes.
Okay, so you mean that you have to be at it. So success may take some time to come.
Yes.
So you also mentioned that some people do remotely, some people do and work together. So today there's a hybrid, there's remote work, all that kind of things are coming up. And with that coming up, that we see a lot of startup ecosystem is booming in smaller towns. And I think you as a venture always look at those kind of opportunities which is beyond metros.
Yes.
So what is your take on it, or how do you see that part evolving?
No, interesting. I mean, you probably mentioned in the introduction that we are the first VC fund out of Pune. So Pune did not have a single fund, and you had funds in Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore. So when we started our fund 2, we really thought about this, that now 5 years later, where would the opportunities be? And to your point, I've actually visited places like Surat, Baroda, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Bhubaneswar, Nashik, Aurangabad, Kochi, all of these kind of places, Bangalore, all of these places I have visited. Why? Because the superficial reason seems to be that the cost will be down, and then you'll be able to run the business better, people will be happier, those kind of things. But as you'll realize, the main factor for the success of the startup is the kind of problem that you're solving. If the problem is big enough and you're solving it really well, then the startup succeeds. All these other factors help. And where I think the small town founders would really score is bringing those kind of problems which otherwise the metro founders would not have thought. There has to be a kind of a fit between the founder and the problem also. The founder has to feel closely aligned to the problem. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So you can't expect a metro founder to have that kind of affinity to a non-metro small town problem. The founder has to come from there. And those are the kind of problems the small town founders can bring to the table and succeed big time, because they really align with that problem.
Why don't you give us some of the examples of some of your some of where you have invested? What kind of problem are this?
For example, now we are investing in a company which is looking at cooperative sector banks. Okay. So this is a very, very fragmented space. The service provider is also very fragmented. No particular cooperative bank software company has really broken through. Whereas this company, sitting in one place, has been able to reach out to remotely to cooperative banks in states like Gujarat, Telangana and all of that, and been able to sell their software. So this is an example. Then there are agri kind of startups. Then there are a very interesting example of a startup where they are solving the problem of beds going empty in tier 2, tier 3 hospitals.
Okay.
And it's a very innovative solution where they have made sure that the lenders also benefit by getting their interest subvented by the hospital. The patients also benefit because now they don't have to pay interest, and of course the hospital's beds are getting filled. So these are the kind of problems you'll not find in the metros, but you'll find them in the smaller towns.
I will come a little bit in fintech and payments, since we are a payment organization. I want to understand that what is your views on embedded financial solutions, embedded payment solutions?
It's very interesting. I mean, some time back there was this saying that every company is a fintech company, and it is true in a very broad sense, because all the data that is coming from your traditional businesses can be now used to have fintech offerings, because now you have much more data of the transactions that are happening, and you can base your fintech kind of decisions on that kind of data. So in that sense, I mentioned some agri kind of startups also. What now happens is, if all that data is available, then the fintech companies can do that. Earlier, which was not possible, because this data would not be available to do your vetting, to base your fintech kind of decisions on. So now that is very much possible, and hence now with the advent of data and the AI and the Gen AI kind of applications, those are going to be more and more powerful. In fact, India is in a very sweet spot in this particular case because of our India stack and that whole journey that India has traversed, which is kind of cutting edge for the entire world. Now we don't even call it India stack, now we call it DPI, DPG, which is digital infrastructure and digital public goods, digital public infrastructure and goods. Now that's a world leading data sets that were available, and a lot of entrepreneurs can come and build on top of that.
Correct.
That's what we hope that happens with all your ONDCs and all those kind of platforms that are coming up. They're coming up with health. All of those digital public infrastructure and goods are a very strong base on which startups can come. And with these things also going international, maybe it's not just an India opportunity, it can actually an international opportunity as well.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree with you completely, because payments, especially see UPI, other countries are definitely accepting UPIs, and and people are looking at us how advanced we are in the payment technology. I will come to my last question technically on the B2B, because you are invested so much in the B2B tech. What is that disruption, and what is the new thing that you expect that in the next 5 years, what is going to happen in this industry, and what the fintech founders or the tech founders should be looking at?
That's a very, very easy question to answer, because it's happening as we speak. I mean, you cannot answer this question without mentioning the word AI. AI is the big thing that is happening. Of course, 2 years back in our fund one, it was AI, and now it is more Gen AI. But that is dramatically transforming everything that we do. And interestingly, with the DeepSeek phenomenon that has happened, earlier what was thought as a very large company kind of a phenomenon. Right. You could think only large companies would have the LLMs, the resources to build the LLMs, the data and so on. And in fact, people are asking us that what will your young early stage B2B companies do in this kind of a paradigm? I wrote, series of 4 articles in LinkedIn exactly talking about this, that the opportunity for our B2B kind of startups is that the enterprise data is not with those tech giants with their social media, but inside enterprises, and that's the opportunity for our kind of companies to build those kind of applications. So that and every company, every end user enterprise company today is wanting to go to Gen AI. They're spending a lot of tons of money trying to build Gen AI applications. That's a huge opportunity. And with DeepSeek coming in, now it is not a preserve of the large players. It can actually be smaller players who can do this at a much lesser cost, and hence much better, much more faster, much more powerful applications can be built by them in the AI and Gen AI space. So in that sense, the leveling of that field is happening. You don't have to be really only a large player to succeed in this. Now there are lots of opportunities for younger startups as well.
Thank you so much. It was really a very insightful discussion. I'm sure our readers and listeners also will benefit from this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Naina. It was wonderful talking to all of you.